The phenomenon could involve some type of activity that some might say constitutes a different form of life.
This would be one of the most closely held secrets in the entire United States government, if not the most closely held secret.
When people say the government can't really keep secrets, I and my colleagues know many secrets that have been kept for decades, and they can be kept.
I'm sitting here today because the American people are being lied to.
It's the only way the lid's gonna get blown off this. We get a commander-in-chief with the guts to just take the lid off of it.
There are now close to 400 reports from military personnel of possible UFO encounters. They say
In 2017, Congress began learning about a half-century-plus cover-up of an ultra-secret program dealing with UFOs, now referred to as unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAP. In 2022, the first congressional hearings were held on the subject in over 50 years, confirming the phenomenon is real.
Instruments report there is something there.
There are flight characteristics or signature management that we can't explain.
What began was a rare bipartisan effort to dig even deeper.
You're the guys investigating it. I mean, who else is doing it?
The more Congress pulled on the emerging threads, the more they began to unravel.
You're talking something that can go into space, go someplace, drop down in a matter of seconds, do whatever it wants, and leave, and there's nothing we can do about it.
With no self-evident propulsion system.
No wings, no IR energy coming off of the vehicle.
Even more startling was the discovery of an alleged black-budget program tasked with the recovery of craft of alien origin.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to...
Mr. Congres, finally, do you believe that our government is in possession of UAPs?
Absolutely, based on interviewing over 40 witnesses over 4 years.
Do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
Biologics came with some of these recoveries, yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
I would go to jail to say things that I know, that I've been exposed to in the program.
Have you ever met anyone that claims to have put their hands on or been inside one of these alleged crafts in our possession?
I can't respond to that.
Hi, I'm director and producer James Fox. I just arrived in Washington, D.C., which is currently the epicenter of an unprecedented effort to force the government's hand into finally revealing what they really know about the UAP phenomenon.
First time the National Archives will gather records.
In 2023, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and Senator Mike Rounds proposed the most ambitious UAP disclosure bill in American history.
This is a major, major win for government transparency on UAPs, and it gives us a strong foundation for more action in the future.
And a requirement as a transparency measure for the government to obtain any recovered UAP material or biological remains that may have been provided to private entities in the past and thereby hidden from Congress and the American people.
And here you have in an actual congressional, in this case senatorial document, the phrase NHI, meaning non-human intelligence, mentioned more than 20 times in an actual congressional document.
My name is Leslie Kane, and I'm an investigative reporter, and I was one of 3 journalists who broke the story in December of 2017 about the Department of Defense secret program studying UFOs. And that story was kind of a catalyst for a lot of things that have happened since.
You get that close to something.
As details of the exposed Department of Defense program came to light, so did evidence and additional military witnesses. What followed was a bipartisan congressional effort to find out what the intelligence agencies really knew about UAP.
Now they know that this is real, right? Because the Pentagon's been studying it. And we had all this great material in our story, and members of Congress started to ask questions.
In fact, congressional committees initiated briefings with witnesses behind closed doors.
Classified briefings by members of the program, by some of the pilots who had actually seen the objects, and that made them realize we got to do something about this. I don't think it's unanimous among...
The New York Times story also revealed official military videos of UAP leaked from the Pentagon.
The gimbal and the FLIR video. And I remember the media was just going nuts.
The objects seen in the various clips are unidentified aerial phenomena.
We don't know what this is, and it's here.
The program has since been shut down, but it was run by a military intelligence official who told CNN,
there is very compelling evidence that we may not be alone.
So not necessary extraterrestrial, but you're not ruling it out.
The stories that first broke in 2017 about the existence of a Pentagon UFO research effort, about some very intriguing sightings that they really couldn't explain. The dam broke.
The U.S. Navy has finally acknowledged that videos appearing to show UFOs flying through the air are real.
The aircraft had 0 control surfaces. It had no means of propulsion that we could detect.
There was 4 of us in the airplanes literally watching this thing for roughly about 5 minutes.
The UFO reports were first investigated by a secret $22 million program.
Do you know if they had the capabilities to create these flying objects like this?
We don't think so.
The Pentagon now admits there's something out there. It's the story of the U.S. government's grudging acknowledgement of unidentified aerial phenomena, and the U.S. Senate wants to know what it is.
Maybe it has a very simple answer. Maybe it doesn't.
Navy fighter pilot Ryan Graves was on duty during a number of sightings, including a near collision with a UAP in August of 2015. Mr. Graves was invited to Washington, D.C. for briefings before members of the Senate Armed Services Committee and Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. Senior Department of Defense officials were sitting at the opposite end of the table during the briefings.
There was probably 8 or 9 stars, on that side of the table. Navy intelligence and more broadly, I think DIA. The DoD side wasn't able to provide a lot of answers to the congressional side, but it wasn't a I don't know or we don't know. It's too classified to talk about in this environment. And so there seemed to be a very clear barrier there that Congress was even having a hard time really getting around, because if you don't know what's there, it's hard to ask good questions about the information, right? And so there seemed to be a little difficulty crossing that barrier.
My name is Kirk McConnell. I believe this is the first time I've ever been on camera. I recently retired from government service after 37 years working as a staff member for various committees in Congress.
Armed with high-level clearances, Mr. McConnell researched UAPs from 2017 to 2024. He attended multiple classified briefings between senators and numerous government and contractor sources. These insiders and their data provide extraordinary confirmation of the phenomenon.
These events were not just accompanied by visual observation, but by sensors, some of the best sensing systems that money can buy. Early warning and surveillance radar, that's the top of the line for the Navy, the Aegis radar system. We're seeing these objects drop down from what appeared to be from space altitudes and just coming down and at a high rate of speed and just stopping, in midair. And then flying around, and then after a while, they would just go right back up again. So this was something really different, pretty radical. What the heck were these folks seeing?
The Congress people and the elected representatives and the retired officials, too, would come out and make these statements, and they tend to go further and further each time.
How concerned should we be about the briefing that you received on UFOs?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into any of the contents of the briefing. It was a classified briefing. One of the key takeaways I'd have is that the military and others are taking this issue seriously, which I think in previous generations may not have been the case.
The senators were shocked. They had thought, as most Americans do, that this is just myth, and they became aware that whether it's the Russians or Chinese or aliens or something else, this is very much for real, it's happening, and we need to get to the bottom of it.
Responding to decades-long claims of intimidation and the forced signing of NDAs, Congress passed bipartisan witness protection legislation.
What we made clear in this law is that there can be no stigma associated with reporting, and that reporting is now mandatory, and that if there is retaliation, that will be prosecuted.
The extent of activity is so prolific that at one military air base, they were posting posters around the base warning the pilots of the potential for mid-air collisions in restricted military operating space.
Navy, for example, I think it was in 2018, issued new guidelines to pilots to report UAP and created a process for that. And I think what we've seen in the last couple of years has been pretty stark in terms of the legislation Congress has written, very specifically demanding that the Pentagon, the intelligence agencies, not just set up an office, but forcing them to dig through the cobwebs, if you will, and look into the past and try to determine were there secret programs that maybe revealed more about the phenomena.
The process began of the Pentagon grudgingly releasing bits of information.
Congress asked us to produce a report that assessed what we saw as the threat, essentially, from unidentified aerial phenomena.
A preliminary assessment was released in the summer of 2021. UAP represent physical objects that have been registered across multiple sensors, including radar, infrared, electro-optical, weapon seekers, and visual observation. A handful of UAP demonstrated an advanced technology, remaining stationary in winds aloft, with the ability to move against the wind and to maneuver abruptly at considerable speed without discernible means of propulsion. And what really caught the attention of Congress was the admission from military pilots of near misses with UAP.
And the main issues that Congress and others have been concerned about are basically safety of flight concerns and counterintelligence issues. But of course, there's always the question of, is there something else that we simply do not understand that might come extraterrestrially?
It became pretty clear to me that there was a real story here. As long as the Congress keeps pushing, and I think they will, I'm not sure how they're going to wiggle out of this.
More than 50 years ago, the U.S. government ended Project Blue Book, an effort to catalog and understand sightings of objects in the air that could not otherwise be explained. The last time Congress had a hearing on UAPs was half a century ago. I hope that it does not take 50 more years for Congress to hold another, because transparency is desperately needed.
We have not been hiding anything.
In 2017, we learned for the first time that the Department of Defense had quietly restarted a similar organization tracking what we now call unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAPs. UAPs are unexplained, it's true, but they are real. They need to be investigated, and many threats they pose need to be mitigated.
The Pentagon sent 2 high-level officers, Deputy Director of Navy Intelligence Scott Bray, and Undersecretary of Defense Ronald Moultrie, to a Congress far better informed than prior intelligence officials had faced in the past.
There is something there, measurable by multiple instruments, and yet it seems to move in directions that are inconsistent with what we know of physics or science more broadly.
Do we have an example of an object that can't be explained as having been human-made or natural?
The example that I would say that that is still unresolved, that I think everyone understands quite well, is the 2004 incident from Nimitz.
200 miles off the coast of San Diego, the USS Nimitz Carrier Strike Group encountered an unknown object described as a tic-tac that flew rings around two of the Navy's best frontline fighters.
The ability to hover over the water and then start a vertical climb from basically zero up towards about 12,000 feet and then accelerate in less than 2 seconds and disappear is something I had never seen in my life.
Are we aware of any foreign adversary capable of moving objects without any discernible means of propulsion?
I think I would, without discernible means of propulsion, I would say that we're not aware of any adversary that can move an object without discernible means of propulsion.
Former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense Christopher Mellon was one of the key figures who brought the Nimitz case public. He and a few other insiders found a loophole in the classification that allowed him to walk the tapes out of the Pentagon and onto the front page of the New York Times.
When I first contacted the Armed Services Committee, or shortly thereafter, I said to one of the staffers there, why don't you get the deck logs for the Nimitz from 2004, from November 2004? So he went to the Congressional Research Office and tasked them to go to the archives and get the deck logs. Guess what? They're missing for that one limited window of time. The records before are there, the records after there, but the deck logs for the Nimitz incident for that period of time are missing.
Gentlemen, it's not beyond the realm of possibility that there is some exploration coming here, and that underlies a lot of the reports you get. I think Mr. LaHood was asking about that. People think there must be extraterrestrial life, and it's not at all beyond the pale that there would be a visit here.
There have been no collisions between any U.S. assets and one of these UAPs, correct?
We have not had a collision. We've had at least 11 near misses, though.
There hasn't been a hearing since 1968, and here we are having a hearing, you know, where just a few years ago we didn't even acknowledge that these things were real prior to 2017. That alone to me was so incredible that I almost didn't care what happened during the hearing. Just the fact that it was happening and that I could be present for that, it felt like, you know, after all the work I'd done on this for so many years, it was really rewarding to me, just really meant a lot to just be in that room.
It's also been reported that there have been UAP observed and interacting with and flying over sensitive military facilities housing our strategic nuclear forces. One such incident allegedly occurred at Malmstrom Air Force Base, in which 10 of our nuclear ICBMs were rendered inoperable.
What really moved me about it was some of the statements that the congressman made, and the kinds of questions they asked were so probing, and Andre Carson was so eloquent in his introduction, and Adam Schiff, you know, and they seemed to really understand the importance of this issue. And here they were stating that to the world.
You're the guys investigating it. I mean, who else is doing it?
If something was officially brought to our attention, we would look at it.
I'm bringing it to your attention.
Sure, so,
this is pretty official.
Sure. So we'll go back and take a look at it, but generally there is some authoritative figure that says there is an incident that occurred. We'd like you to look at this.
For what it's worth, I would like you to look into it. And if for no other reason, you could dismiss it and say this is not worth wasting resources on.
Mr. Krishnamurthy.
First question is, have we come across any wreckage of any kind of object that has now been examined by you?
The UAP task force doesn't have any wreckage that isn't explainable, that isn't consistent with being of terrestrial origin.
And then finally, are you aware of a document that appeared around 2019, sometimes called the Admiral Wilson Memo or EW Notes Memo?
I am not.
You're not.
I'm not personally aware of that.
Okay.
The leaked memo reveals an alleged covert meeting with former director of the Defense Intelligence Agency, Vice Admiral Thomas R. Wilson, an astrophysicist and aerospace engineer, Dr. Eric Davis, about an ultra-secret UAP crash retrieval program. According to the memo, the meeting took place in the back parking lot of a United States national defense contractor involved with some of the government's most sensitive technologies. Vice Admiral Wilson prefaced the meeting with the following caveat: "If you blow my trust, I'll deny meeting you, deny everything said, won't meet with any more people without clearances. Too risky. Never seen anything like this program in Black programs community." A reverse engineering program, something recovered years ago in the past, called themselves the Watch Committee, or Gatekeepers. An isolated group using their own facilities and cleared personnel, about 400 to 800 workers. No White House names, no president, no congressional people, no congressional staffers. They had a craft, an intact craft they believed could fly. The program manager said they didn't know where it was from. They had some ideas on this. It was technology that was not of this earth, not made by man, not by human hands.
So you're not aware of that?
I'm not aware, Congressman.
In my 10 seconds remaining, then, I guess I just would ask, Mr. Chairman, unanimous consent to enter that memo into the record.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it.
The Wilson memo was brought up in the congressional hearings. Do you think there's any legitimacy to that memo?
That's an area that I don't feel I can comment on.
So anyway, I suppose you're...
Stanford-trained PhD physicist Dr. Hal Puthoff has been involved in highly classified programs for the DoD and intelligence communities. Dr. Puthoff was senior advisor and contractor to a number of UAP programs for the Defense Intelligence Agency. His alleged research into crash retrievals is mentioned in the Wilson-Davis memo recently read into the congressional record.
I mean, I've signed security oaths, TS, SCI, Gamma, HCS, I mean, a whole line of things. Well, if you get access to this information and this information and this information and this information, you will not reveal it to the public. And if you do, you will go to jail. Sign the piece of paper, okay? Sign the piece of paper. So until there's some statement on high that somehow abridges that, oh, for sure, I would go to jail to say things that I know, that I've been exposed to in the program. I mean, Davis, it's part of the Wilson-Davis memo. I mean, of course, Davis is my senior scientific advisor for a couple of decades, so I know him well. And if he were to say it happened, then I'd be willing to admit it happened. But at this point, that's an area that it's not worth digging into.
We caught up with the man who organized the first congressional hearing on UAP in over 50 years, Representative Andre Carson.
Senator Reid was quoted in 2019 in the New Yorker magazine. "I was told for decades that Lockheed had some of these retrieved materials, and I tried to get, as I recall, a classified approval by the Pentagon to have me go look at the stuff. They would not approve that. I don't know what all the numbers are, what kind of classification it was, but they would not give that to me. They would not give me clearance." Have you heard any credible reports or anything at all that would substantiate that we have hardware or bodies. I know it's a tall order, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but that's so significant if that's the case. What are you hearing, Congressman?
Well, obviously, due to my work on the hearing and the oath that I've taken, I won't talk about technology because it could compromise our national security. I think it's important to acknowledge our victories. Just a couple of years ago, if you brought up UAPs to other members of Congress, there's a chance you could be laughed at. Now we're seeing public statements from the White House, Pentagon, and more, and there's a lot we don't know. I understand that can be frustrating, but we want to encourage folks, give kudos to you, to keep pushing for more information and more answers. So we have a lot of work to do to remove the stigma.
One thing I learned as a reporter for 20 plus years in Washington is if the Congress learns it, we will learn it too eventually, because Congress is the worst at keeping secrets. So it'll be interesting to see how this process plays out, but the pressure's on, and I think the Pentagon, the CIA, other agencies are going to have to answer the mail.
In late 2022, President Biden signed legislation that established a mandate for new UAP reporting procedures. Within the National Defense Act for 2023 is a section outlining new UAP reporting procedures relating to retrieved materials.
One particular thing that really jumped out at me, any activity or program by a department or agency of the federal government or a contractor of such a department or agency relating to unidentified anomalous phenomena, including with respect to material retrieval, material analysis, reverse engineering, research and development, detection and tracking, etc. That's some pretty incredible language. I don't even have to read between the lines there.
It's stunning. What they're saying is that all of these legends about Roswell.
The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. The disc landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico.
It was not anything from this earth.
We find it sufficiently credible. We now have reason enough to believe that may have happened. I mean, it's incredible. And I think it will lead to the realization that we're not alone. But maybe we're not publicly ready for that yet.
Our team takes to the streets in Washington, D.C.
I think if UFOs were real, I would not want to know. It might just give me more anxiety.
So I think I would be really, really interested to know if anyone else out there. Even if it's scary. Even if it's scary, it's better.
I think there's a right way to communicate that to the public, though. There needs to be a unified message on both sides of what could be going on, but I just think that people need to have a consensus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no way to slowly reveal something like that, but I think it should just be talked about like anything's talked about, like sports.
Transparency is always a good thing.
Yeah.
So I do think it's something I care about.
They wouldn't want to cause a mass hysteria.
How are we safe? How are things going on?
I think that as citizens, we are citizens of this earth, not just this country. And as such, we would have a right to know what is beyond this earth.
How would they tell us?
By news.
Hide your kids, hide your wives.
I know, right?
They're coming to get you.
They're coming to get you. I know, I'm thinking of like the Marvels now. I'm like, they must be on the news.
Is there other data? Is there other sensory data? Is there other photographic data, videotape, FLIR footage, things that you've seen that have not gotten out?
Oh, there's lots more data that has not gotten out.
Like
that
what?
that I'm aware of. And
that you're aware of or that you saw?
Well, that I saw, that I worked on, yeah.
Can you talk about it at all?
No.
All of the witnesses in this film have been vetted as to the veracity of their government or contractor positions. Some appear anonymously as they work their way through the Congressional Whistleblower Protections Program, recently established by Congress. They represent just a small portion of legitimate UAP whistleblowers wanting to testify under oath.
I'm sitting here today because the American people are being lied to. And I think it's high time that we rip the Band-Aid off and go for full transparency, because I believe the American people, and quite frankly, the people of the world at this point, have a right to know.
So the government has done itself a disservice for whatever reason, because in a lot of people's eyes,
they've lied to us for like 75 years.
This particular subject is where the government really started lying to us. Hi, my name is Lanval Logan. Everyone calls me Logan. I'm a retired Air Force intelligence analyst that started off as a B-52 crew chief and cross-trained. I had the opportunity to support the UAP task force, and I'm here to talk about what I can at an unclassified level to share what I know.
People are starting to come out. You know, Congress is saying, come testify. I am Sarah Gam. I was a research scientist for the Department of Defense. And during my years as a scientist, I was able to investigate and research classified and unclassified reports of UAPs.
Why now?
I feel like it is the time where I've seen the interest in the Congress.
So you're not aware of that?
I've seen the interest with the UFO programs, and it just was very adversarial. I get the fact that the technology, if you could separate that out and call that national security, that the technologies they're working on, that has some reason to stay classified. But the revelation that there's other life out there, that should be something for everybody.
Did what you see convince you that the DOD or the intelligence agencies have a lot more compelling data than what the general public knows about?
Yes. There's a lot more data out there. I'd say a fraction of it that I was able to see is something unexplainable, like physics that's beyond our realm. It's not an aircraft, it's not camera parallax, it's not trash in the sky, it's not a balloon. It's something we don't know what it is. It is a true UAP.
Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid said to me, what's been released is merely the tip of the iceberg. How do you respond to that?
Because I've supported the task force and everything, there's more data out there. Now,
more data out there or in there?
Okay, more data behind closed doors.
I'm 100% saying I have evidence, and I've seen it, of craft that perform with anomalous characteristics, completely silent, able to maneuver at random speeds, stop on a dime, hover, take off again, go into and out of the water.
Yeah, we have 31 knots sustained wind, topside, gust of 40.
Whoa, it's splashed. Splashed. Mark bearing and range.
What do we have that could do that?
P1 control doesn't know what type of aircraft it is either.
It is really, truly amazing when I'm able to look at a report or video, photos, and know that's not from here.
The number of emails that I've gotten alone in the last 2 months from other scientists saying, how do I help physicists?
Dr. Gary Nolan is an American immunologist, academic, inventor, and business entrepreneur with his own lab at Stanford University School of Medicine. Dr. Nolan has worked on alleged exotic or metamaterials in association with members of the intelligence and defense communities from UAP cases around the world.
Do you know things that if you revealed them right here on camera would get you in trouble?
Yes.
Is it frustrating knowing those things?
Yes. And so I don't know anywhere near what I think some people do know, and people I know do know. And so it's not what I know, it's what they do. And I think that that's the reason why you're seeing this concerted effort from individuals within the government who are saying, enough is enough, time to get this information out.
I'm 100% saying I have evidence, and I've seen it. This stuff up to secrets housed on SIPR, stuff at the top secret levels, house on JWICs. On these systems, there are very high quality image files showing UAPs doing trans-medium travel, atmospheric entry, etc.
Science can explain this stuff, but you can't explain it based on a shaky iPhone video that somebody took while camping.
It's frustrating when I hear mainstream scientific community on all the talk shows criticizing the lack of more compelling data when I know it exists.
It seems to me aliens who visited us, they would manifest more convincingly than fuzzy video.
And then there's all these different excuses as to why it's not being released. I get that, and I'm sure that some of that is relevant. However, the bigger issue is they have definitive confirmation that these craft are real and they don't know where the fuck they come from, excuse my French.
Okay.
That's it. I know that's the case.
There's enough evidence out there that demands a verdict that says, yes, there's something going on. Is there enough evidence to say that these are off-worlders? Some of us would say yes, some of us would say no. But collaboratively, with the right people working together, I think we could come up with a definitive answer, and the answer is yes.
His name is Gary McKinnon. He's 46 years old.
He hacked into the computers of NASA, the U.S. Army, the Navy, the Air Force, and
broke into some of the most secret U.S. military computer networks that
97 U.S. military and NASA computers.
But he claims he was just looking for secret evidence of unidentified flying objects.
Snooping for UFOs dragged Gary McKinnon.
The Americans say McKinnon is a cyber terrorist who caused almost £500,000 worth of damage to military computers.
Correspondent Jonathan Hunt is live in our studios in New York, and U.S. officials, Jonathan, not at all happy about this one.
Not at all, Shep.
He stumbled on unedited satellite images of, as he said, out-of-this-world flying objects. In 2002, he was charged with the biggest U.S. military hack in the universe.
What did he find in the way of UFO evidence?
Well, he says he spent a year looking through these computer systems, and he found, he says, photographic proof of alien spacecraft and the names and ranks of something he called non-terrestrial officers. He has not at this point shared those names with us.
If extradition does go ahead, Gary could face 60 years in an American prison.
The crew caught up with Gary McKinnon in the English countryside.
How many people wanted to know what you saw?
Oh, God. Newspapers, film companies, book writers, television stations. Yeah, I've lost count. Oh, my God, you're Gary McKinnon? Yeah. What did you see? Is it true? Da, 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 da. Yeah.
They very much want to get him back here to face American justice.
One official here at the Home Office told me the fresh evidence left Theresa May, the Home Secretary, with little option but to extradite McKinnon.
By 2008, I was so low because we went for court case after court case and judicial review and losing every time. And eventually I thought, look, I had a good talk with myself. I'm going to either spend the rest of my life until I die in a foreign prison. So I decided to take my own life. Because I thought, I'm not giving my life to prison. So.
Gary McKinnon had hacked into a number of military networks, but it was through a subnet at Johnson Space Center that he hit pay dirt.
I was on dial-up, 56K dial-up, and it took me 5 minutes to download 1 megabyte. So I thought, I've got to do this before I get caught. I've got to download. I was trying to steal the truth. Slowly, this image started to appear as black, and then it lightened, and then it was the hemisphere of a planet, I assumed Earth, and then I started to see the top of a tubular-shaped thing. It's silvery white, metallic looking. it got about halfway down the screen, and this was a craft floating above, I assume, the Earth. I didn't see land masses, but I saw cloud cover. Totally not man-made. It was very smooth. There were no rivets, no seams, just this very smooth tube shape. And it got 2/3 of the way down the screen, and I was sitting there with bated breath, waiting for this gold dust to come into my lap. But then I saw the mouse move, and the mouse pointer moved to the bottom right of the screen. It right-clicked on the local area network icon and the pop-up menu and chose disconnect, and boom, blank screen. That was me blocked out. So it was my eureka moment, but also my, shit, I've been caught.
Mr. McKinnon is accused of serious crimes.
Then you really do think, you know, the Talking Heads song, oh my God, what have I done? Very heavy shit.
The gravity of Gary McKinnon's alleged offences are not in doubt.
There have been discussions between the British government and the American ambassador about potential steps that could be taken in this case.
On his visit to the White House, David Cameron spoke to President Obama about the case, and both agreed they could find an appropriate solution.
One of the traditions we have is the president doesn't get involved in decisions around prosecutions, extradition matters.
Since I came into office, the sole issue on which I have been required to make a decision is whether Mr. McKinnon's extradition to the United States would breach his human rights. After careful consideration of all of the relevant material, I have concluded that Mr. McKinnon's extradition would give rise to such a high risk of him ending his life that a decision to extradite would be incompatible with Mr. McKinnon's human rights. I have therefore withdrawn the extradition order against Mr. McKinnon.
That was incredible. Theresa May. I cried like a baby. You know, that huge relief, 10 years of, because, you know, us men, we bottle it up, don't we? It's all, just keep it in, keep it down. And it all just, floodgates. But yeah, incredible day.
I want to say thank you, Theresa May, because it was an incredibly brave decision to stand up to another nation as strong and powerful as America is rare, and she had the guts to do it. We've done it. We've won for the little person.
Mr. McKinnon is forbidden to travel outside of England and Wales for the rest of his life, unless he receives a pardon from the United States.
There are a number of ways in which this story could have been, shall we say, managed to stop it getting out, which was our intention.
They were bracing for impact.
Yeah, they were.
Of this story coming out.
Yep.
Dr. David Clark uncovered what many say is the UFO case of the century. August 1990. Scotland's Daily Record was on the eve of publishing a story involving 2 witnesses and 6 35mm photographs. Then the Ministry of Defense stepped in, and the witnesses and prints vanished for over 30 years.
And he was worried about whether he would get into trouble with the Official Secrets Act. He said,
After over a decade of research, Dr. Clark discovered one of the early investigators of the case, Royal Air Force Press Officer Craig Lindsay, one of the officials known to have interviewed the witnesses.
Something that could hover without making any noise and travel at the speed that this guy said it went vertically upwards is utterly beyond my knowledge. How they keep it quiet for 30-odd years, again, beyond me.
In August of 1990, 2 hotel employees left after their shift for a late afternoon hike in the town of Calvine, just a few miles away.
It was the Athol Palace Hotel, because when they mentioned the name, that hotel's got lots of, pinnacles and things. It's very Disney type of place.
2 witnesses were out hiking. They then saw a large diamond-shaped craft hovering.
It didn't move, it just hovered in the air without making any noise.
With the help of Calvine resident Giles Stevens, we were able to find the probable location of the encounter. The 2 witnesses most likely hid under this tree.
The witnesses looked at this for a while, and one of them had a camera.
The craft was hovering silently, and they were terrified.
That's what they said to me, that all they wanted to do was to hide. But when the jet came along, they sort of stuck the camera out from behind the bush and snapped 6 frames. They got a picture of the likes of which I don't think anybody has seen before. The bit that then stands out is that I asked him what happened next, and he said, we watched it for another minute or 2, and then it started to move. And how did it move? Oh, it started to go up, and then it got faster and faster and faster and disappeared straight up. And I said, what sort of noise did it make? And I got the instant answer, it didn't make any noise. And that was the bit where suddenly everything in my head went, wait a minute, I don't know of any aircraft that can hover and can maneuver at that kind of speed and doesn't make a noise. That's when I kind of woke up to the whole thing.
It would have blown our standard line out of the water. Therefore, we wanted to bury this, and we did. All the photographs and all the negatives were acquired by the Ministry of Defense, and they were never seen again.
Despite efforts of the Ministry of Defense to keep this evidence from the public, Royal Air Force Press Officer Craig Lindsay kept one print, which he has now donated to the Center for Contemporary Legend, where it was analyzed by photo specialist Andrew Robinson.
First time he mentioned it to me, he said, I've got this photograph. I wonder if you could copy it for me. I'm going up to Scotland to get it. Everything fitted with the story. It substantiates the narrative that's been told about it. The grain seems very smooth over the edges of the object. There's no sign that anything was done to this after the image was taken.
So Craig Lindsay at the RVF saved this for 30+ years.
Yes. Even after retirement, he took it with him when he left the office in 2000.
He's kind of a hero.
He is a real hero. We would know so less about this story now if it wasn't for Craig doing what he did.
The reason that this was a good photo was twofold, really. Firstly, it was daylight. But secondly, far more importantly, there were features of the ground. And what that meant, of course, is that one can triangulate, one can start to make detailed calculations about the distance of the object from the camera, the height above the ground, etc. The bottom line was, everyone was very impressed with this and said, no, it's a solid, structured, real craft. Where are the wings? Where's the fuselage? Where are the engines? How does this thing fly? And what we were interested in trying to do from the images is to try and almost reverse engineer an idea about what kind of propulsion system was involved here, and that, we hoped, would give us a clue as to who was operating this. The last thing we wanted was an open discussion about these up-close and personal daylight images of a huge unknown craft of some type with military aircraft in the background. If you have a date and a location and a time when a military aircraft was seen, you would find out in an instant what aircraft it was, what squadron it came from, who the aircrew were, and you would instantly be able to debrief them. For whatever reason, the Ministry of Defense line on this is that the aircraft was not traced and the pilots were not interviewed.
The overwhelming consensus is that the military plane seen in the photo is a Harrier jump jet, but neither records nor a pilot's name has been found.
So we've got three possible scenarios. 1, hoax. 2, secret stealth military aircraft belonging to the United States or some other foreign power. Or 3, which would fall into the category of other, which would imply originating from a non-human intelligence.
At one point during my posting on the UFO desk, I went to a briefing, a more general briefing about UAP, and this photo was brought out, and the briefer, who was in the intelligence community, said, you know, this photo here, he said, and he started gesticulating, and he said, you know, it's not the United States. He said, it's not Russia, and that only leaves, and he pointed straight up, and we looked at his finger and we looked at the ceiling, and nothing further was said.
Now, 34 years after their disappearance, a co-worker at the hotel, Richard Grieve, has broken his silence.
I know the people that took the photograph. I'd go to my grave swearing on my great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren's lives on that, yes. I worked with them in the kitchen. I served fried eggs with them. I make poached eggs, they make toast. You know, we was 5 of us in the kitchen. Ewan was a good breakfast chef. I've just named one of them.
A few days after taking the photos, the witnesses and their co-workers were on a 5-minute cigarette break when they had an unexpected visit.
Pissing wet with rain, thundery weather, big black car appeared. The car came in, the lights stayed on, the window wipers stayed on, private glass in the back, driver in the front. He never got out of his car once, but the 2 people in the back did. They stepped out the back and that was it, cigarette break's over, go back inside, we need to speak to your friends.
Richard and the other chefs watched through a nearby hotel window as the 2 strangers confronted their co-workers in the parking lot.
They were fucking spooks. They were men in black. And they stood outside in the pissing rain speaking to them.
After roughly 10 minutes, the men drove off and the 2 witnesses came back inside.
They came in the back door. They looked white as a fucking ghost. Something happened to them. They seen something. Whoever came out the car scared the absolute crap out of them. Guess what? We've taken a picture of a UFO and the Americans are after us. Whatever got said to them outside, they were not the same chefs that left the same kitchen I was working in with them.
According to their co-worker, Richard, the 2 witnesses started to drink heavily, missed shifts, slept in their cars at work, and after 4 weeks, they vanished, without a trace.
Chefs don't just disappear out of a kitchen for 34 years and not have no other job. Do you hear what I'm saying? You just don't fuck off and not work ever again. Where are they? Even if they do tip up to be dead, I'd still like to know where they went to.
Back in Washington, D.C., the filmmakers arrive at NASA headquarters for a press conference, where the head of NASA will announce the results of their first year-long UAP study.
The announcement was made during a news conference on findings from NASA's headquarters in Washington, D.C.
We, NASA, have taken for the first time concrete action to seriously look into UAP.
UAP are one of our planet's greatest mysteries.
We looked at NASA's assets. They typically do not have the resolution needed for UAP events.
They relied on unclassified data only.
The NASA independent study team,
based on our current findings and methodology, that we find no evidence to suggest that UAP
have an extraterrestrial origin.
Most events are explainable as planes, balloons, drones,
meteors, satellites, aircraft seen with the sun glinting off of them,
weather phenomenon, and instrument features.
But we don't know what these UAP are, but we're going to try to find out.
You said at the beginning of the meeting that that NASA will be transparent. Well, a month and a half ago, Mr. David Grush said under oath in Congress that the U.S. government is in possession of UAPs and extraterrestrial life. Do you believe what Mr. David Grush said, or is he lying?
What he said, if I recall having seen this on the nightly news, was that he had a friend that knew where a warehouse was that had UFO locked up in a warehouse.
I served at the NRO Operations Center on the director's briefing staff, which included the coordination of the presidential daily brief and supporting variety of contingency operations, which I was the Reserve Intelligence Division Chief backup.
For the first time in history, an intelligence officer with top-level security clearances testified under oath that the U.S. government has definitive proof that we're not alone.
Mr. Grush?
Mr. Chairman, ranking members and congressmen, my name is David Charles Grush. I was an intelligence officer for 14 years, both in the U.S.
Mr. Grush, a decorated combat veteran, had been tasked by multiple agencies to look specifically into classified UAP evidence.
I was my agency's co-lead in unidentified anomalous phenomena and transmedium object analysis, as well as reporting to the UAP task force.
The Inspector General deemed his whistleblower claim both credible and urgent.
Mr. Grush, in the last couple of years, have you had incidences that have caused you to be in fear for your life for addressing these issues?
Yes, personally.
Upon discovering a rogue UAP program, Mr. Grush felt going public was his only option.
I just want everyone to note that he's coming forward in fear of his life. To put in perspective, if they were really not scared about this information coming out, why would someone be intimidated like that?
Has the U.S. government become aware of actual evidence of extraterrestrial, otherwise unexplained forms of intelligence?
I was informed in the course of my official duties of a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program. I made the decision, based on the data I collected, to report this information to my superiors and multiple inspectors general, and in effect becoming a whistleblower.
What level of security clearance is required to fully access these programs?
TSSCI clearance and meets the eligibility criteria, the access adjudicative authority should be able to grant you access.
Mr. Burchett, if you'll yield, so just to put a fine point on that.
He knows all this information, but by law he can't tell it to us unless we're in this secure environment.
Something I can't discuss in public setting.
Mr. Grush, finally, do you believe that our government is in possession of UAPs?
Absolutely, based on interviewing over 40 witnesses over 4 years.
And where?
I know the exact locations, and those locations were provided to the Inspector General, and some of which to the intelligence committees. I actually had the people with the firsthand knowledge provide a protected disclosure to the Inspector General.
I handle intelligence and cybersecurity for the...
Kirk McConnell, a former staff member for the Senate Armed Services Committee, was present at meetings with current and former government and contractor personnel claiming first-hand knowledge of involvement in crash recovery operations, intelligence operations, and reverse engineering programs.
They have or have had very high-level security clearances. They appear to be rational and believable.
You're telling me people have come forward behind the scenes claiming first-hand knowledge of craft of non-human origin?
That's correct, they have. We have, let's say, sources. We have individuals, people, who have asserted not only that there have been crashes, but there have been crash retrievals, and that there is a crash retrieval effort that has spanned a significant period of time since the end of the Second World War. And so it does deserve to be looked at seriously and not dismissed.
I've always tried to keep an open mind, and I really believe it's all about the data. I'm very empirical, and I'm not going to take a conclusive position on this until there is absolute conclusive proof. But at this point, together with some other sources, I started to think, oh my God, it's really true.
In 2020, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence, Christopher Mellon, engaged in confidential correspondence with a high-level government official with credible access, who described in considerable detail aspects of an alleged UAP recovery program. After he cleared it for release, Mellon provided an unredacted copy with names, including that of the gatekeeper of the program, to select members of Congress.
I was flabbergasted when I got this message. This is from somebody that I knew, a senior government official with appropriate clearances and access, telling me that UAP have landed and been recovered, and there is a formal government program, and he had encountered it, discovered it, and was seeking to be read into it. Blank and I are making huge progress getting into the crash retrieval program. So it's not just one individual, it's two who are involved in Whitting. He plans to meet with you at some point. The Senate Armed Services and Intelligence Committees would be slack-jawed if they found out what we now know. We're dealing with the recovered UAP that landed, not crashed, landed in Kingman, Arizona in the 50s. We also know who recovers landed or crashed UAPs under what authorities. We know the management structure and the security control systems and ownership of the program. We know a still highly classified memo by the Secretary of the Air Force in the 50s is still in effect to maintain the cover. We also know who the Air Force gatekeeper is, and he names him.
The gatekeeper is the individual who manages access to the program.
And I know someone who spoke to the Air Force gatekeeper, and the Air Force gatekeeper purportedly sort of neither confirmed nor denied.
U.S. Air Force Master Sergeant Jason Sands has secretly testified to the Senate and House Intelligence Committees. This is his first time going on camera to discuss the unclassified portion of those meetings.
Could you and a handful of others prove to our government, our elected officials, that we are in possession of off-world vehicles?
Yes.
Master Sergeant Sands is willing to publicly testify under oath to Congress that he can produce the classified details needed to verify the following claims, provided he's given immunity.
I'm a retired Air Force Master Sergeant. Part of my career in the 1990s, I worked 3 years at Air and the programs, which included numerous sites around the United States. And I was one of the Red Team members that would go out and do telecommunications assessments to check for intelligence leaks and counter-intel type issues at those locations that were involved in the legacy program.
The term legacy program means endeavors to collect, exploit, or reverse engineer technologies of unknown origin, or examine biological evidence of living or deceased non-human intelligence.
Do you have the names of the programs?
I gave it all to them.
You have the names of the people involved with the programs?
Yes.
This definition appears verbatim in the UAP Disclosure Act authorized by Senators Schumer, Rounds, Rubio, and Gillibrand that passed the Senate in 2023.
Why now?
I feel like it is the time where I've seen the interest in the Congress. I've seen the interest with the UFO programs.
Unidentified aerial phenomena have been reported.
And including Arrow, the talk of that standing up and everything. Kind of think in my head, is this the time to do this? Because I'd seen so many times that it failed.
Tracking what we now call
Decade after decade of, somebody trying to come forward, pointing fingers at Congress, pointing fingers at pointing fingers at whoever else, and it just was very adversarial. If I felt comfortable enough without getting shot to go walk on air and show them exactly what I told them in the interview, I would go out there and I would drive them right up to the gate. As long as I knew they had the authority to walk into that facility with me. This is the hangar I told you about. There's the radar over there. There's the weather station I was taking over. Here's where me and the commander went around the whole base. I could show them all of those kinds of things, and that's where we're kind of headed with all this. I get the fact that the technology, if you could separate that out and call that national security, that the technologies they're working on, that has some reason to stay classified. But the revelation that there's other life out there, that should be something for everybody. That's the way I feel.
Two congressional committee staffers have confirmed the credentials of this witness to the filmmakers. He is who he says he is. He was stationed where he said he was, and he's confirmed actual names of classified programs.
There's so much concern that there's something locked up, classified, and that the American government is not being open. Well, we are the American government, and we are open, and we're going to be open about this.
Do you believe what Mr. David Grush said, or is he lying?
Whatever he said, where's the evidence? Is my response.
I can give you a specific cooperative and hostile witness list.
And we could get that in the SCIF if we were allowed to get in a SCIF with you. Would that be probably?
I can't discuss that publicly, but I did provide that information both to the Intel committees and the Inspector General.
He also said he had another friend that said that he had parts of an alien.
Do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries, yeah.
Do you believe our government has made contact with intelligent extraterrestrials?
Something I can't discuss in public setting.
encounter took place at Nellis Test Range in Nevada in the winter of 1994.
Acquired this unknown object, aircraft some type, 18 degrees, 18.6 degrees elevation.
U.S. Air Force Master Sergeant Jason Sands was stationed at the nearby Nellis Air Base with the 67th Intelligence Group at the time.
This previous week, the UFO came on the range, flew right by what we called the schoolhouse, because that's where we did the training, and it went down into the valley and continued on. So they have actual video of it, and that's what you see out there in the public, this Nellis Range UFO.
C1 control doesn't know what type of aircraft it is either. And no ACM, no tactics.
The system that they use also uses a type of radar to lock on to aircraft as they come into view. So this is what it recorded the UFO also.
Looks like one. Right up high now, going like straight up. I don't know what it is.
The people that leaked the video out to the public also leaked the names of those individuals.
I don't know.
And they were talking, a lot of them were excited, some didn't know what it was. They were saying, some were saying it was a UFO for sure. Other people were like, no, it had to be some kind of messed up looking helicopter. Other people were like, I just don't know, I just don't know. But everybody was excited about it.
3 days later, Sergeant Sands was part of a convoy overseeing a training exercise. He was in the lead vehicle heading toward the center of Nellis Range near Quartz Mountain.
One of those days when the wind just cuts right through whatever you're wearing. It's me, there's another person in the passenger seat, and a young lady off to my right. About a mile down the road, there's this guy on my left, and he looks like he's wearing a uniform like ours. But I also notice his skin tone is very white to blue. And I'm thinking, oh crap, this guy is dying of hypothermia. And he's running funny too. It's like every step he takes, it looks like he's gonna fall over. Guy needs help, we need to stop. As we get closer, I definitely get the idea that he must be suffering from hypothermia because he does have this bluish tint to his skin. I'm thinking, this guy needs medical help. I need to get my butt out of the car and, you know, before he falls down and starts to die. And I'm thinking...
In the distance, Sergeant Sands noticed a strange landed craft resembling a helicopter, but he was more focused on the individual in need of help.
And then as we slow down and we approach the part where he's, you know, just a few feet away, the guy in the passenger seat screams, "He's got no effing ears." At that point, there's my open door. I'm standing on one side of it, and the individual that was running towards us was on the other side. And I shut the door, and I look up, and he's got no ears. And I'm thinking, is he a mutant? I look at them, they're symmetric. They're just like ours. They got lobes, everything. It's just they're conformed to his head. They're not sticking out like we do. And then I notice his eyes. They're like twice as big. And I'm thinking, he's either not from around here, from another planet, kind of not around here, or this is some sort of a mutant. And he turns towards me, and I get that kind of a snake bite, kind of a fear in my gut, like, oh my gosh, you know, very scared. And then he starts talking to me, and he's speaking a language I don't know, but I'm understanding every word he says, and I don't know how that happened. So there's this telepathic sort of understanding I get from him, but he's speaking a different language.
How far away were you from him?
No more than about 3 feet. The eyes caught me at first for how dark they were, but it was more like, you know, looking at somebody that had just large eyes that were dark colored. Looking him right in the eyes, and then I'm starting to kind of once him over, and I can see his battle dress uniform. Usually if you go up range, you wear your really crappy stuff. And this guy had a pristine uniform on. I remember looking at his boots thinking, how on earth are they that shiny? And after running as far as he did just there, he should have had dust on them. And I'm thinking, how did they stay pristine like that? So it was a little bit off to me, but that didn't stop me for too long, because he was asking me stuff, and he was asking for some material. A material he called either tantalum, tritium, or something like that. And I didn't know what the name was. He mentioned it was to repair his craft. And the only material that I could come up with, I was like, is that titanium? He's like, no. And then he stepped off the roadway and went back to his craft.
As the individual walked back toward the craft, Sergeant Sands realized his military colleagues seemed entranced. They all watched as the pilot climbed back into the cockpit and the canopy closed. The vehicle rose silently.
He got into the cockpit, and then he kind of went up in chunks, like stair steps, above the roadway, and then he took off to the south. I got back in the car, everybody seemed to come back to normal, snap to, and we just went up and did our daily job.
Would you respond to anyone watching this that would say this guy's clearly
a nut job? Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say, number one, the Congress would never have talked to me if I was. I was verified probably a year before I even talked to Congress by the UAP task force. There are databases that people don't have access to that only Congress and people that are in special access programs have. That's where they discovered my name. That's where they saw where I was stationed also in my military records. That established at least who I said and where I had been and the programs I was access to. They can verify all of that.
The producers contacted DoD officials who were aware of the 1994 encounter, but would not verify it on or off the record. As extraordinary as this story seems, the subject is not new. The Air Force and other agencies, as well as governments around the world, have been documenting close encounters of the third kind. Reports of interactions with non-human intelligence since at least the 1940s.
I asked some of our scientists, what is the mathematical probability that there is life out there in the universe? At least 1 trillion. And when you think of the universe and how vast that it is, there are billions and billions of galaxies, and each of those galaxies, including our own, have billions and billions of stars.
There are 10,000 times more stars in the universe than there are grains of sand on the surface of the Earth.
Has the U.S. government become aware of actual evidence of extraterrestrial, otherwise unexplained forms of intelligence? And if so, when do you think this first occurred?
Certainly, like I've discussed publicly previously, 1930s.
I'm Congressman Tim Burchett from Knoxville, Tennessee. I was one of them that was responsible for putting on the big hearings that we had on UFOs with Grush, Baver, and Graves.
Claims under oath were made that, if true, are paradigm shifting for all civilization. What is being done to verify the assertion that the U.S. government has spaceships of non-human intelligence in their possession?
We need to have a select committee on that. Because
over a year after the congressional hearings featuring intelligence officer Grush, Congress is still unable to get him into a sensitive, compartmented information facility, referred to as a SCIF, where he can provide the classified details of what he knows.
Where would you look?
titles, programs, departments.
Every obstacle is being put up. You know, they're trying to block Grush from getting into the skiff, saying he doesn't have the security credentials.
Cannot share classified information in public settings.
Not only has Grush been obstructed from fully revealing the classified details necessary for Congress to verify his claims, but his private medical records were leaked to the media, resulting in stories questioning his credibility and mental health.
Grush is saying the government leaked his personal medical information to smear him and discredit his claims that he made against them.
David is not making conclusions. He's providing data. And this is where I think the media has gotten it wrong, is that he's just saying, look, I was tasked to go collect this data. And I just provided the data to the relevant authorities. Now, the only reason, frankly, that David is sitting at that table was because the relevant authorities didn't like what he was saying and went after him.
What I personally witnessed myself and my wife was very disturbing.
He filed an official report of witness intimidation to the Inspector General of the intelligence community, which is an ongoing investigation.
It was very brutal, some of the tactics they used to hurt me both professionally and personally, to be quite frank. Yeah.
Meanwhile, back in the Senate, the UAP Disclosure Act of 2023 passed, an unprecedented piece of legislation that could prove or disprove Grush's claims.
For the government to obtain any recovered UAP material or biological remains that may have been provided to private entities in the past and thereby hidden from Congress and the American people. We are lacking oversight opportunities and we are not fulfilling our responsibilities.
The bill's most significant provision provided for a presidential-level panel to look into all other federal agencies.
Presidentially appointed and Senate confirmed to control the process of reviewing the records and recommending to the president what records should be released immediately or postponed.
The bill passed in the Senate, but was shot down in the House.
Key portions of an unprecedented measure to disclose classified government records relating to UAPs, those measures were stripped from the annual defense spending bill.
It's beyond disappointing that the House has refused to work with us on all the important elements of the UAP Disclosure Act during the NDAA conference. But nevertheless,
key to gutting the bill were Mike Rogers of Alabama, the chair of the House Armed Services Committee, and Mike Turner, the chair of the House Intel Committee, who represents Dayton, Ohio, home of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, long rumored to be one location where UAP material is kept.
There's nothing to see here. Why are Mike Rogers and Mike Turner in the House blocking this bill that is, in my opinion, the most important legislation for transparency in American history?
The story is that they've held it from Congress, from the administration. I mean, it's pretty astonishing if true.
Every decade, there's been individuals who've said that the United States has such pieces of unidentified flying objects that are from outer space. There's no evidence of this, and certainly, it would be quite a conspiracy for this to be able to be maintained, especially at this level.
Pull up his PAC donors. Who are his biggest donors? Lockheed, Raytheon, Boeing. If there's nothing to see here, why don't we just pass this and see what happens?
Most people won't touch it. I mean, they're afraid to be embarrassed, or two, they're afraid what they find.
Those with firsthand knowledge who have, an interest in being forthcoming are deterred from doing so because they're afraid of the consequences, despite the whistleblower protections that exist in statutes and in policies, that those are just not really nearly effective enough. They feel that that their livelihoods will be at risk. In some cases, even worse. There's some people who express fear for their personal safety.
Thank you so much to all of our speakers. We will start taking questions. For those in the room, we have a microphone over here that we would ask you to speak into.
Thank you very much. This is directed to Mr. Nelson. Thank you for being here. Two quick questions. One is, how can we make the determination of what something isn't when we don't know what it is? And B, after a careful review of the data, if it's determined that some, underline the word some 10 times, UFOs or UAP originate from a non-human intelligence, what's the plan to disclose that to the public?
And can you identify yourself, please?
James Fox. Thank you.
Let me repeat what I said. I think it's important that you hear this word for word. The NASA independent study team did not find any evidence that UAP have an extraterrestrial origin. But we don't know what these UAP are, but we're going to try to find out.
Thank you very much. And is there a plan in place if it is determined that some of them originate from a non-human intelligence to tell the public? Is there a plan, or?
If we are what I said we intend to be, which is transparent, you bet your boots. We will say that. Whatever we find, we're going to tell you.
I just wonder if the people in power have any kind of plan for that. I kind of doubt they're very prepared for that. I don't know.
What does the press release say when the government or governments decide to come forward and say, yes, we have evidence that we're not alone? That truth potentially upends the established order across the world, political, religious, economic. And I think there is a disincentive if you don't really know what the reaction is going to be. How is it going to affect markets? How is it going to affect sovereign borders? How is it going to affect economies around the world? How is it going to affect the way people view God?
Are people ready for some kind of revelation that deals with extraterrestrial life, life that is interdimensional, life that is otherworldly? And so that kind of revelation unearths people's beliefs, their religious beliefs, their spiritual beliefs, what they've been taught all of their lives. And so if such a revelation were to present itself, how does it get presented? And can it be done in a way that people are accepting of it?
People are threatened by this thing. It doesn't threaten me. I get the old 50s talk about how this would upset the balance of our religious. Doesn't upset me. I'm a born-again Christian. I think, God created, Genesis says, God created the heavens and the earth.
And we made a list of well over a couple dozen issues that would have to be addressed. And some of them really got into the nitty-gritty, like, well, if Corporation A finds out that Corporation B had access to the advanced materials from crash retrievals and they didn't, well, then they're going to sue that corporation. They're also going to sue the government because they didn't get access and one of their competitors did. So, when we added up all the numbers, it turned out that despite our personal feelings about it as we entered this process, we came to the conclusion that disclosure was kind of unsustainable, almost. It's a bigger, more complex issue than most people probably appreciate when they just say, well, why don't they just tell us what's going on, be more transparent? Well, there's a lot of things have to happen before you can get to that point.
Today, we stand at a pivotal moment in history. The question before us is not just about unidentified anomalous phenomena, but about the very principles of transparency, accountability, and trust between the government and the people it serves.
Some of these crash retrieval programs and maybe
Get the appropriate accesses.
For whistleblowers and for the protection of whistleblowers.
There remains an ongoing official public effort to investigate what is really known about UAP.
And to say, until I've seen evidence, I'm just not going to accept this, can't blame them. I mean, that in fact is a scientific position.
If they got the clearances and were exposed to some of the evidence that you've seen, would it be a different story?
It'd be a different story about how they felt about it, sure. But then they couldn't tell their friends or their wives or whatever. So they would be in the position of people that are on the other side. And so if they tried to tell somebody, they would get the same response to them as, well, prove it to me, show me some proof. And they wouldn't be able to do it. So that's what happens.
Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
A growing number of high-level insiders, elected officials, physicists, intelligence officers, and military whistleblowers are telling us that the evidence needed to prove their claims is being held by private corporate entities contracted by the government, who for the time being remain immune from congressional oversight.
So there's a degree of separation between them and the government. It's just like, you know, you contract somebody to paint the street out here and they're not a government entity. I can't bring them in front of a committee. I can bring the government entity that contracts with them, but there's a great deal of separation there. So that is by design, I feel like, and that keeps it away from us.
Do you believe that a higher form of non-human intelligence has visited this planet?
Non-human intelligence exists. Non-human intelligence has been interacting with humanity. This interaction is not new, and it's been ongoing. And there are unelected people in the government that are aware of that.
How confident are you that that is true?
There's zero doubt.
They have hardware, and there's a crowd, and there's occupants running these crowd, whatever they may be. And it's a very super sensitive topic, because it's something that probably a minute fraction, like less than 1/1000th or 1/100,000th of the United States military and the government are the only ones that know.
If programs like that existed, or still exist, where even the president's top advisors aren't aware of it, let alone the people's representatives, that's a government within a government. How does a democracy survive if you could have something like that that is shielded from the people that are by law authorized to know about that stuff?
Witnesses with nothing to gain and everything to lose, who claim first-hand knowledge, are pleading with elected officials for immunity so they can testify under oath about what they know.
That's what happens.
The implications, not just for the United States, but for all of humanity, are so profound that we owe it to ourselves to continue to support our committed elected representatives during this unprecedented push for transparency.
Where would you look?
If the existence of these secret programs is true, it would prove to be the greatest revelation in history.
If we were provided the clearances right here and right now, could you walk me into a lab and show me something?
I'm not saying anything.
Have you ever met any insider that made the indication to you that we're not alone?
Yeah. Yes.
Did you believe them?
I believe them.
It's very funny to me that every time a Russian bear comes across by Alaska or the West Coast or whatever, we freak out. We got fighter planes, everything up there. We got an unknown that pops up and everybody's just like, oh, nothing to see here. You know, and I'm like, how can that be? You know, how can that be?
I had a conversation about this with the current Secretary of the Air Force, Frank Kendall, who has been in the Pentagon, or in and out of the Pentagon for 40 years. And I said, hey, you're the head of the Air Force. What do you make of this? And basically he said, listen, the phenomenon has been around for as long as I've been alive. This is not new, these reports. In his view, he said, I have to worry about threats. I have to worry about China. I have to worry about real world national security vulnerabilities. And his point was, well, maybe the scientific community needs to be where you go to try and figure this out.
My name is Fred Clausen. I'm a retired Air Force bird colonel and fighter pilot. In the spring of 1980, I had an event with a UAP. I was scrambled while sitting alert with a fully armed F-15 to identify an unknown object over the North Sea. Once I found the object, I observed a glowing football-shaped object about the size of my F-15, less than a quarter of a mile away. So I centered it up in my HUD. Gun camera is running. I'm taking pictures of it, trying to figure out what I'm going to do next. Do I intercept it? Do I shoot at it? I don't know. Then all of a sudden, the object just disappeared. Went up into space in a blink of an eye, and it was gone. They had no wings, no type of propulsion that I could identify, just a glowing object with structure that was there, and then it was gone. I returned, debriefed my commander, was told not to speak about it again. Gun camera film that I had was confiscated, never to be seen again.
Why are you coming forward now?
Coming forward now because I'm 82 years old and I feel the time is right to speak about this. Even though my story is an old one, it proves that the Air Force was intercepting unidentified flying objects in 1980s, and mine was one of them.
If the answers are, there are no unidentified aerial phenomena, then say that. But that's not what the answers are. The answers are, we can't tell you.
Were their members just gobsmacked by their assertions from David Grush?
Yeah, they were. They were. They couldn't believe it. A lot of them, they were a little shocked that all that came out.
I heard lots of stories in 2017 about there being a very strong evangelical Christian community within the military, particularly in the Air Force, that didn't want to go here. Put that stuff away. We don't want to hear about the woo-woo. Because again, it doesn't fit the established, accepted human story.
would you like to see the President of the United States do?
I'd like the President of the United States not to be embarrassed and for fear this is going to hurt his legacy, to say there's something going on out there, let's take a look at it. It means that he is interested in the scientific community coming up with some answers to questions that thousands and thousands of people have, and thousands of people have experienced unusual things.
We send people to the electric chair in this country on the basis of eyewitness testimony every day. It is a foundation of our legal system, but that's not how this issue is treated.
What happened when you looked at those photographs? Come on, put me there.
Well, it's
I
like...
want to be you for a minute.
It's like, wow, you know, like, I can't think of any way to explain this other than this is not something in our inventory, I'm pretty sure.
James, thank you so much, my friend. Let's go to work. Let's everybody have a great, safe, beautiful, fun, and amazing weekend. We're gonna go work and go have some fun. So, see you later.
Bye.
All right, James, thank you so much, my friend.